Welcome back to another episode of What Are You Made Of with your boy, the unstoppable Mike C-Roc. I am in the house today with a friend of mine I met at a real estate event, one of Grant's real estate summits. And Dr. Thaddeus Gala came over and was talking to my partner, Jared Yellen. And I was introduced to Thaddeus, and thankfully so, because he's got a great story. He's doing wonderful things, and I want to introduce him to you all. And Thaddeus, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. This is awesome. Looking forward to it.
So before I ask you the magic question, I want to just introduce you real quick. Dr. Gala initially went into natural health care to save his mom's life after she was facing a debilitating condition. Doctors claim would have her forever wheelchair bound. Now he oversees over 50,000 yearly patients interactions in his clinics. As an entrepreneur at heart, he mentors business owners and leaders on how to grow and scale their businesses. He has helped entrepreneurs. Listen to this one, guys. This is the really powerful part right here. Entrepreneurs save millions in taxes and works with top financial advisors on helping business owners reduce their tax liability by up to 96% every year, keeping their money completely liquid. 96%. That's a massive number. That is.
Yeah, it definitely catches some attention. That's for sure.
Yeah, I love it, man. I'm going to hear more about it as we go. But before I do that, what are you made of, man?
Man, that's such an open-ended question. I love that. Yeah, man, I just love helping people. I love my pillars are health, wealth, and impact. So I love because, like my mom, right? When she didn't have her health, she was a liability to the family. She couldn't function. I grew up on a homestead. Like, I don't know if you guys remember Little House on the Prairie, but that's what my life was like growing up. My parents were a couple of hippies. They moved up to Southern Oregon from California, bought a piece of property in the middle of the Oregon wilderness, pitched a tent, and started building a house. No roads, no water, no electricity, nothing. So I started, whether I knew it or not, I was an entrepreneur. You had to just figure shit out, and you had to just go for it. And when my mom got sick, she became a liability, not an asset. And not that we looked at it that way, but as I got older, I realized, hey, we got to make changes. Thankfully, now my mom is in her 70s, and she runs and wins 5K races in her age group. She has to find younger and younger friends. She's our lead health coach. She's in complete remission. This is a gal that was told, she might not be able to use her arms again, the whole stroke, on full disability, on massive meds. So to see that transformation, I realized, like it's like this, that you can either just kind of float along through life, and you can, like, through the river, and you can just hit rocks and hit rapids and get the shit kicked out of you. Or you can be active. You can be swimming, you can be moving, you can be looking, you can be dodging, and you can make the most out of it. So I think I was instilled in that early on, whether I wanted to or not. That was instilled in me, and has gotten me, I think, where I am in a lot of different fronts, both in the healthcare and in the financial space.
Yeah. Now, is it chiropractic?
Yep. So we have so my initial training was in chiropractic. I have 4 clinics now. We have a team of about 70 people. And as you mentioned, I oversee, as the founder and the CEO, we process around 50,000 patient visits a year.
So I have a chiropractor down the street. I don't say any names, but it's 2 people in an office, and they're always jam packed. And
yeah,
it's hard to get an appointment in there. And also, they're back to back to back all day long. And yeah. I'm just like, what kind of life is that? Like, if they're fine with that, that's fine. But the same thing every single day, back to back to back. And you didn't stay in that mode, because I'm sure you were there at some point, right?
Yeah. I like to, it's kind of like what Grant said. I saw one of his videos the other day. I thought was really, really good. He said, to get to the next level, you're going to have to break something or give something up that you really love, and likely that you worked really hard for to get, in order to get to that next level. And I think I've always been that, instead of 1 marshmallow now, 2 marshmallows later kind of guy. And for whatever reason, that delayed gratification has served me well. And it's allowed me to break a lot of things that were holding me back that I didn't realize. I mean, even to the point of where, leaving my friends and moving all the way across from Oregon to Florida to go to chiropractic school, and leaving, some of my best friends, my girlfriend at the time, to do that. I mean, that was a tough decision. Right. And then to come in, and when I finally, here I am 12 years later of, 8 years of school, working as an associate. And then I'm finally making it. And I was making around, several things. One is I was making about $3,000 a month. I was living in an 800 square foot house, and I hired my first mentor for $8,000.
When was this? What period of time?
This was probably 2000 and I would say probably 2009, 2008, 2009. So like right at the height of the housing crisis.
And you were already a chiropractor, or?
I was an associate, and I was
Okay.
making less money than my friends were waiting tables because I was just getting started. I didn't know how to run a business. I would just show up and just assume patients were going to come in. I didn't have good patient management. I had great scientific skills because I was always a book person.
Yeah.
But I realized that like there's a lot more to like actually patient management and building a business and all the pieces that go into that. So I was making $3,000 a month. You're going to love this. And I paid my first mentor $8,000 plus travel expenses for one day. So for one day in 2008, 2009, during the housing crisis, I was so naive. I didn't know what the housing crisis was all about. I just knew like, oh yeah, home sales aren't working that well. I bought
But I don't mean to cut you off, but this is an important point.
Yeah.
Things that happen like that aren't really our individuals' problems.
Right.
It's the country, it's the government, and people get all wrapped up in it, and then they let it become their problem. Am I right?
It's like the phrase, right? Like, I was told there's a recession, but I decided not to participate.
Yeah.
And so same thing is here it was 2008, 2009. So yeah, so you're gonna like this because I'm gonna weave in a couple things you just said. So I hired this guy. Well, let me back up. I was first at this seminar for this continuing education thing, and this guy gets up there and he says this: everyone that's here right now, that your practice is closed and you're not making money, raise your hand. And myself and the Pareto principle, that 80% of the room's hands went up. Now, for those of you that are here at this conference and your clinic's open, you're still making money, raise your hand. And about 20% of the room went up. He said, all right, you guys, that's the difference between having a medical practice and a medical business. And the light bulb went off and I thought, okay, I need to get that guy in my life. He came to my house, 800 square feet. And C-Roc, you're going to love this. My girlfriend and I at the time, the house was so small, we had to move the dining room table to the side of the room, open the front door. He came in, we shut the front door, and then we slid the dining room table to the back to the middle of the room and sat with him there for 8 hours, mapping out a whole game plan. And this was when a lot of my friends and colleagues were going bankrupt. They were, going under. And here I was, I somehow, I still don't know to this day how I got it, but I was able to get a loan, almost $1 million loan. And again, I was making about $3,000 a month. I don't know how I was able to do this, but I was able to get a construction loan of all things. And I built a brand new clinic right around the housing market crisis. And, I'll be the first to admit that it wasn't all, sunshine and roses. It was stressful. I had warts on my hands. I had eczema. I was probably it was the most stressful time in my life. And because I wasn't even making enough money to cover the mortgage payment, looking forward. So when we opened the doors, I realized that we have like a 30-day runway to make this work. And here we are making this big leap. And so I leaned into it and, just looked at it as, hey, you just work hard. Their problems are going to come up. We don't have problems. We have opportunities for solutions. And however good we can get and efficient and effective we can get at solving problems, emotion aside, emotion isn't going to do it. We just need to get good at problems, because who's going to answer phones? Who's going to pay this bill? Where, this patient needs this. I realized later in life that all we do is we solve problems all day long. And whoever solves the biggest problems the most effectively and efficiently, they get paid the most. And you get paid directly in proportion to the size and the level and consistency of problems that you're able to solve in the world. If you're able to solve, a $15 an hour problem of sweeping the floor, then you're going to get paid $15 an hour. If you're able to solve potentially saving humanity and getting people to Mars, you're likely going to be the highest paid person in the world. And so, so it's if we can take emotion out of it and just look at how can I solve problems, then that's majority of the battle right there.
And so at that time when you had that mortgage and you were trying to get clients, right? And just back and fill a calendar, right? At that point?
Yeah. Now, thankfully we had a great location here. So we're right on this main busy highway. And here's the thing. I know that school isn't out for the pro, right? So what I would do is on a Friday, my girlfriend and I on Friday, we would leave work on Friday because I was an associate at the time. before that. And we would drive around 4 hours to save a couple $100 on a plane ticket. We would drive 4 hours to a bigger airport, take the red eye back to like Ohio, wake up. So we'd sleep on the plane. So we didn't have to get a hotel room. We'd get a rental car. And because this was before Uber and all that stuff, we'd get a rental car. We'd drive to this clinic that was open on Saturday. She would shadow the front desk. I would shadow the chiropractor. We then would drive back to the airport, take the red eye, then back home so we could just sleep on the plane. And then we'd drive back on Sunday, map everything out, and then go back to work on Monday. And what I would do is we'd go to these different clinics that were successful. I would just find them in trade journals, et cetera. And I'd find something that was worthy enough to be written about. I thought, well, they're probably worthy enough to go visit. I literally, C-Roc would cold call them. And I would just say, hey, can I be a fly on the wall? You know, I was too naive enough to know like, hey, I should bring value to this person. I just said, hey, I'm out of school. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. Can I come shadow you? You're obviously successful. And I would do this to all these clinics, and I would take out stuff that I knew I could do and that would work, come back, implement it. And almost every single time, within that week, I would have a sizable bump in our profitability and our revenue and our patient retention, the services that we offered. And it's just continued to grow from there. So yeah, I mean, we just got in there. We worked 12-hour days, you know, back to back, and through a lot of effort and a lot of what we thought was the right stuff, a lot of trial and error, and you know, it worked.
And it's only been about 13 years till now, right? From that.
Yeah. I mean, I graduated in 2006 and I was an associate there for about 4 years. And then we opened the doors. We opened the doors after, because construction, you got to think, takes a year and a half. So we opened the doors, I believe it was June 2011.
Okay.
So,
11 years.
Yeah.
So at that time, when you're going through the warts infestation, the eczema, like I've been there, man. I've had eczema breaking out my hands like so bad because of the stress. I can relate to that so much. But back then, could you have imagined or visioned exactly what you have now?
Yes.
Not exactly.
Yes
but
and no. I would see. There was definitely something that I knew was out there. Like I knew, like, if other people are doing it, like I can do this. You know, like in that thing where the guy says, who has a practice, who has a business? I was like, well, I want that. I can do that. So whenever I would see successful people, I think, well, I can do that. I want to do that. And so I did envision it on some level. Yeah.
And then looking back, if let's you say you go back to that 2011 year.
Yeah.
And yourself, and you saw what's going on right now, what would you have thought?
And when you say this going on, you mean like where I'm at right now?
Where you are right now. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh gosh. I would think as a dream, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what, C-Roc? I don't think I've ever had anyone ask me that question, man. That when you had just asked me, that really hit me. Because yeah, it helps me not take it for granted, man, because I am very blessed and work really hard. And I think if someone were to show me the picture of my life right now, then I would, yeah, man. Yeah. I'm getting emotional, man. That's a heavy question. I like that.
Yeah, man. Look, cause I just went through this myself. I mean, when this weekend, when I was at GrowthCon and I'm up there and I'm on the stage as a partner with Grant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I would even just go back a few years when I first went to the first GrowthCon that I went to at Miami Marlins Stadium, and I had no idea what I was getting into, but I was excited seeing him parachute into the stadium.
Yeah.
And if I could go back to that person now and watching all the people on stage and seeing like I would be absolutely just tickled to death to be where I am right now. But my thing right now is like, okay, what's next? Yeah. Best-selling book, you know, business is great. You know, started 2 tech companies, got the tech Project 10K with Jared Yellen, Grant, all this. And I'm like, what's next? Like, we're not going fast enough, but I got to stop for a second and look back and say, you know what?
Yeah.
And we've come a long way.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
That rear view mirror ROI, man, is more than just, you know, just more than just money. It's also the mindset and the satisfaction. Yeah. I mean, like, so you're on stage. I mean, I love that because you got to think of how fast life can change when you start leaning in and you start making it. What do you think was the biggest thing that led to that for you being on stage?
Well, it's everything to me in life and I know this is a fact for everybody, but decisions, like you just make a decision, and decisions also keep you back and keep you small.
Yeah.
So every time we fail, we make a decision.
Yeah.
And that decision's usually trying to blame why we failed, and we picked the wrong target, why we failed.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to readjust and fix, like, okay, well, I'm the cause of that. I made a decision or did something off. I need to figure out what that was to move forward. But I made a decision that day when I was at GrowthCon that I would speak on that stage, and I was not going to stay small anymore. Like, I was playing too small of a game.
Yeah.
And I just did whatever I had to do. I spent like probably close to $300,000 on self development and investing in myself. And
oh yeah, I spent more in self development and mastermind groups and coaching and mentoring than I have on all my formal education.
Well, I'm the guy that talked the sales guy at Grant's office down on the GrowthCon ticket to that first GrowthCon, and I ended up getting it for like $1,200 when it was $2,500 or something. Yeah. I just beat him up. I was that kind of person, like thinking so small.
Yeah.
And now, by the way, I never talk. This might be a bad thing. I don't know what, like, some super rich people might disagree with me, but I never talk people down on a price anymore.
Yeah.
I just don't do it. I'm like, because you know what? I feel like if I do that, then people are going to do that to me. And I don't know, man. Like, I just won't buy it. You know what I mean? It's just like,
I think that's a good principle to work by. With gosh, there's something you just said that jumped in, but now it just jumped out of my brain here.
It's there somewhere.
When you were on those decisions, I think that's a big thing, because like when you said you just made a decision to do that, I really do believe that once you fully commit to something, your brain will start to solve those problems and things will start to come in whether you realize it or not. And so I think if people can recognize that there's things you don't even know, you don't know, but trusting the process, that nobody's born knowing how to walk. Nobody's born being, Kipchoge, the fastest marathon runner, like everyone start like Kipchoge, the marathon runner, the guy that did sub 2 hours. I know it wasn't like officially 2 hours, but like he started not being able to walk just like everyone else did. So I think that we're proverbially and we're metaphorically always at a starting point for some skill, some mindset, financially.
Yeah.
And that if somebody else can get to that level, it's very likely that we can get to that level, or we can make significant strides towards getting there.
Well, and what is it in us? Maybe it's just me. I've seen it in other people too, but like the impatience factor, like, I know I can get there. What's taking so long? And what is it about that? Like, and we get frustrated that we're not there yet, kind of thing. Like,
I think that comes down to, it's like that marshmallow test, right? Where they take kids and they put them in a room. They say, hey, you can have this one marshmallow now, or I'm going to come back in 20 minutes. I'll give you 2 marshmallows. And then you can predict their behavior with that, right? So some of it's how we're wired, and then a lot of it's our environment and so forth. But one of the things that I was going to share that I think is relevant is when I finally got the clinics up and going, and I was making around 13 grand a month, I thought, part of my brain was, oh my gosh, I've made it. And 2 things happened. Number one was I hired this other chiropractor, and it was going to be 10 grand a month. And the decision though was this: it was, I'm going to hire this guy for 10 grand a month, which means I'm going to drop back down to only 3 grand a month. And I'd worked, at this point, what was this? This was probably 2012. So you got to think, so yeah, I'm like 12, 13 years into my professional life after high school, and I'm finally making money, and I'm taking a step back again. And I'm saying, you know what? I'm going to do this because I realized, I asked myself this one question, and I sat with this in my office, and I thought, I'm going to hire this guy, and that means I'm going to be arguably one of, if not the lowest paid person in my entire company. And I'd worked so hard to get here. And I thought, but that's going to free up 60 to 80 hours a week of my time. And I said, do I think that if I had 40 to 80 hours of free time every week, I could go out and generate another $10,000 at least? And I thought, it took me about 5 minutes. I thought, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I know that I can figure it out. And so I took a huge pay cut, and I went back out and did that. And around that same time, I got a letter from my CPA, and I called him up. I said, is this supposed to be some kind of joke? He said, what do you mean? I said, you're telling me I owe $250,000 in taxes? He said, yeah. I said, Doug, I only have 3 grand. I only have 30 grand in the bank account. I said, I always thought that if I don't have money, that means that I'm not going to pay taxes. He's like, well, it's the way that your way that you're structuring things, and it's just the way it is. And I realized what had happened was I had carried some. Well, I mean, there's a handful of things, but one of them was I had taken money that I had kept spending on business expenses, but it was in this year, and it wasn't from the previous year. So I didn't have enough money saved up for taxes, and I didn't zero it out the year before. So he said, well, death and taxes. And I hung up the phone. I felt like I got hit by a truck, and then it hit me. So here's my mom when all the professionals said that nothing could be done. My mom, the doctor, said she'd been in a wheelchair the rest of her life. And now here she is running and winning 5K races. And so maybe my CPA is wrong about this. And I realized that CPAs are just like doctors, that majority of doctors are wrong about most things most of the time. Just like most of us are. Most doctors give medications and they really don't know how to get to the root cause. And CPAs are no different. The average CPA is not an entrepreneur. The average CPA is not a sexy strategist. The average CPA is a recorder and a reporter. What would you rather have, a sexy strategist or a boring recorder and reporter?
Mhm.
Well,
Yeah.
most CPAs are really good at crunching numbers and being a human calculator. They're not sexy strategists. So I realized that there's a huge gap. And C-Roc, I could probably name a handful of people that I've worked with in the space that I got on a phone in about 10 to 15 minutes. I'm saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes that they didn't even know they didn't know, because their CPA is a 9 to 5er. They don't think entrepreneurially. If they did, they'd be running the company, not working in the company. And they would have already strategized how to reduce and eliminate taxes. And in about 10 to 15 minutes, I've saved people hundreds of thousands of dollars in their taxes by just figuring out a few things, because their CPA just wasn't wired that way. So you got to find the right playmates in the right playground. So that's been my second career for the last 8 years now, is helping entrepreneurs get their taxes down so they can keep their money to do what they want, when they want, with who they want. So,
And does it have to be a self-employed person, or can it be a W-2 employee?
it can be W-2. There's an extra step that comes with that. But if somebody is entrepreneurially minded, then yeah, they can do it. And that's the biggest thing. I really do think if you have like an X-axis and a Y-axis and you have 4 squares,
Mhm.
and let's say you have people down here in their mindsets and CPAs over here in their mindsets, and you can do this with any profession, is that probably 95% of the people think entrepreneur or think conventionally, and 95% of CPAs think conventionally. So most things that get done in this world are going to be conventional. But let's say that now you're in that 5% that thinks entrepreneurially. Well, that you have a 95% chance, most likely, of finding a CPA that does not think entrepreneurially. And the 5% of CPAs that do think entrepreneurially are likely already gobbled up and swallowed by like Grant Cardone's team, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, because they're already attracting that talent. So the problem is you get this freaking 5% screaming, smoking freaking race car, and you're putting half water in the tank. I mean, it's just not going to run.
Yeah.
And so you got to get the right race car and the right fuel and the right systems, and you're going to win the race. But by default, it's not going to happen. So many people don't even realize that sector of their life, that there's such a dichotomy of CPAs, just like there's such a dichotomy of real estate investors, CPAs. I mean, arguably, you could just say that Grant is a great salesperson. And he's a great personality, and he's really good at real estate. I mean, there's a lot of people really good at that, but Grant is a unicorn. He has created his own whole sector, right? So there's something unique about him that we can all learn from. And it's the same thing in any other area in life. Not all, Grant Cardone is really good at sales and real estate, but not all people that are good at sales and real estate are going to be the next Grant Cardone.
Oh yeah. Right. Now, is this a foolproof system? Is it based on the tax laws and loopholes, or structuring things? Like, some people's first thing in their head is going to be like, well, man, I might get in trouble with this, but I'll try it. Or, you know what I mean?
So here's the thing, right? So there's tax evasion and tax avoidance. Tax evasion is not recording income, or it's recording expenses that never happened. That's the orange jumpsuit stuff. Tax avoidance is the legal things to do. Now, you could, and loopholes, I think, are kind of synonymous with it, and loopholes get a bad name. But let me just ask you this, C-Roc. Let's say that you were a farmer, And this is going to be a brain dead example here, just for the audience.
Yeah, that's fine.
And I'm happy to share other strategies too. But let's just say that you're a farmer and you were looking at $100,000 net profit. And here it is, let's say November and December. And you thought, well, gosh, we're going to have a tremendous growing season this year. I'm looking at the almanac, the weather, everything is lined up. We're going to have a banner year this year. I know without a doubt that we're not going to have any bug problems. We're going to have plenty of water. We're going to get the optimal seeds. We're going to have a banner year.
Going into the next year is what they're talking about, right? Yeah.
Here you are, let's say November, December.
Yeah.
And you write $100,000 check to buy a brand new tractor, and you write that whole thing off on your section 179. Well, that arguably could be a loophole, because that tractor is going to sit there until you start using it in the spring or fall.
Yeah.
You're just smart, right? Now, is that a loophole?
Right. Nah.
No,
Yeah.
That's just running your business, because the law
strategy. Yeah.
It's strategy. Now, that's obviously a brain dead, falling off the log, easy example, but there's more advanced ones that are just like that. Once you understand the tax law, now take that to the nth degree. That's where things get juicy. And that's where you start saving tens and hundreds, or if not millions of dollars in taxes.
And generally you give the information and then they take it to their CPA and say, hey, do this. They don't ask them. They say, do this.
We can do both. Yeah. We can either do it for people. We can teach them how to do it, and then they go to their CPA and do it. It doesn't matter to me, but I typically find okay, so let's do this. Two things. One is, remind me to say what the rule of 6 is, but let me also say this. Some CPAs would say this: well, why would you buy the tractor now? Because it's just going to sit there, and then you have to take care of it. You have to maintain it until the summer. And you can get pushback on really basic ideas. The 9-to-5er CPA that's just a recorder and a reporter is going to push back on. So they may say, well, gosh, do you really need another tractor? Why don't you just rent a tractor? I mean, wouldn't you, and they come up with all these other things. For me, I would rather buy the tractor, zero out my taxes, and then go refinance the tractor and get my $100,000 out 100% tax-free, that then I can go use on other business expenses, other investments, hire key team members, et cetera. And now I have my money working for me on multiple levels. But a CPA is not going to think that. And you wouldn't realize it, but in subtle ways, it'll get trickled out that a CPA will start being a wet blanket on some, not all of these ideas.
Right. And then the rule 6?
Rule of 6 is this. If you don't care about taxes, think about this. If you're a business owner and you have a 25% profit margin, which is about average, and you're in a 35% tax bracket, so assuming those two things, 25% margin, 35% tax bracket, for every dollar that you save in taxes, that's the equivalent of $6 or more of top line revenue. Said another way, if you save $500,000 in taxes or $100,000 in taxes, that let's just say if you save $100,000 on your taxes, that's the equivalent of a $600,000 business. I don't know about you, C-Roc, but I see the average person that's just kind of starting out, what it takes to get a multi-million-dollar business, the amount of time, energy, money investment, no guarantees, et cetera, that you're going to do that. For every dollar you save in taxes, which is money you've already worked so hard for, the ROI on your time is exponential, because once you set up the systems and the processes, it's typically evergreen. So you can arguably increase, and just the way the numbers work, if you eliminate your taxes, that's almost the same as adding about 54% new top line revenue.
Yeah. And is this something that you can go back on, or only forward? Can you do any retroactive work with people? There
are a handful of things. Yeah. Depends on their setup, depends on if they're cash versus accrual, depends on if they have real estate or not, depends on how they're structured, S Corp, C Corp, L. So the short answer is yes, we can go back in time. We are much more able to obviously do things going forward, but there are some things we can do going back in time. It's just more limited, but yes, there is.
And for the audience, because we're running over time here, and I respect your time. I appreciate it. How can they reach you and engage with you further, Dr. Thaddeus?
They can come to our annual retreat, guardiansretreat.com. So guardiansretreat.com, we got myself, Gary V, Dave Meltzer. I'm trying to rope you into coming down there. We got, or they can go on social media, Instagram, Facebook, go to Thaddeus Gala, check it out.
Okay, cool. And man, I got so much that I could talk to you all day, man. finally, what's the vision for the future for you? And then we'll wrap this up.
My vision is to make $1 billion, have a billion dollar real estate portfolio. Why? So that I can turn around and just write a check and build the world's largest, biggest, first natural functional medicine hospital that helps people legitimately reverse chronic disease, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, diabetes, fibromyalgia, you name it, on down the list. And that we don't have to accept insurance. It's affordable and readily available to the masses and the public, and it revolutionizes healthcare. And I want to help a lot of other people get really wealthy in that process.
Awesome, guys. Go check out Dr. Gala. Phenomenal man. I met him in person, and I like I said, I could sit here and talk to him for hours. Great dude. Go check him out. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Thaddeus. Thank you for watching. Brother. Thank you for listening. And if you want to continue, subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. Go to YouTube if you'd like to watch these. Mike C-Roc, Ciorrocco. Keep coming back. I appreciate you so much. Until next time, be unstoppable.